The agenda this week surveyed the shifting landscape of grocery stores in the province and explored the advancing issue of automation. The agenda's week in review begins looking for ways to create retirement income security for all. Let me do a follow-up question here. Who knew pensions could be such an intense topic for debate here?
Absolutely.
Okay, but here's the thing. I remember I remember when the former Conservative Party of Ontario leader Tim Hudak raised this. He said, you know, it's all well and good for some lucky people to have defined benefit plans, particularly if they're public servants, funded by the contributions of people in the private sector who don't have those kinds of good pensions and may have DC pensions, may have no pensions at all, and they're funding these Cadillac pensions for public servants. How much pension envy is out there is my question.
Well, based on research we've done, in Ontario, there isn't pension envy anymore. What people understand now, this is the research we've done about a year ago, what people in Ontario, they believe that it's fair that public servants have these pension plans, and what they want.
Really?
Yes.
That is not what my...
Yes, no, Keith, we've done the research. We've done the research. We have the... Let me finish. Can I finish, Keith?
You have to.
Can I
finish?
Do you mind if I finish?
Yeah.
Is it all right?
Finish, and then we'll get Keith to come back.
The point is, and I think this is the critical point in where we've evolved to as a society, pension envy has disappeared in the sense of people begrudging public servants a pension. What they want is retirement income security for themselves, and we've seen that. They supported Kathleen Wynne and voted for her on ORPP, which was a major plank. Kathleen Wynne's efforts, the efforts of the Canadian Labour Congress led to an expansion of the CPP, which would have been unthinkable.
So we don't mind if you have it as long as we get it too.
They want
That's
something,
the thinking.
Yes.
Okay, Keith and then Caroline.
So part of this whole process is understanding the cost of these arrangements. You know, it's fine to say, oh, this is nice to have this. One of the things that's gone wrong on the accounting side is we haven't been properly valuing the cost of these guaranteed promises.
That's not, you know,
that's
again,
not an issue.
That's not an accurate statement. What you're doing is you're taking an academic's view, and there's different ways of looking at this. No, there's the reality of funding these plans. There's the fiduciary obligation to invest in assets that are going to earn returns over time and establish a discount rate, as opposed to going off the real bond rate.
You're describing a target benefit plan,
no,
which
I'm
is
not
perfectly fine.
A target benefit plan.
Caroline, come on in here.
Okay, I want to go back to your point about pension envy. And while I understand that some surveys have shown that it doesn't exist, and I take that point, I think there's a great deal of room for pension envy to emerge as a huge issue, given that you know, a small percentage of Canadians have access to a DB plan at all. Many Canadians don't even know whether they have a DC or a DB plan or what they've got. And 1 in 3 Canadians don't feel completely unprepared and stressed out about their retirement income security.
So this speaks to financial literacy.
It does. It speaks to financial literacy and a basic fundamental understanding of what's being spoken about here by the panelists, which are many of the real issues. I think for the individual, it kind of boils down to, I'm really worried, I don't have enough, I'm humping this huge mortgage that I'm hauling around, I have a lot of debt, I don't know where my retirement income is going to come from. And wow, my government, my neighbor that works for the government, you know, isn't worried about that and is buying a cottage because they have a pension plan and they're not worried.
Well, they may not be buying a cottage, but they are able to spend their pension in the community and help to support the economy that they live in. Yeah. So there are very positive externalities from having this kind of DB pension plan. For example, the 330,000 healthcare workers of the province. The research that HOOP has done has shown that there's a substantial impact on a number of communities in Ontario that is very positive, and it means that those people who are in retirement and drawing on this pension are not dependent on social assistance, and they're not
contributing to the economy.
They're contributing back to the economy.
Steve,
so when you add it all up,
I also think pension funds like ours, like HOOP's, we have an obligation of what I call pension citizenship. So not only do we have to advocate for the defined benefit plan, and our members advocate for it. We also have to think of creative ways where perhaps coverage under our plan can be expanded, where our investment offerings can be offered to smaller plans so that we can help. Because we don't believe in a situation where we're going to be the last person standing. So we think this concept of pension citizenship matters. And I think it's something that we want to do more than talk about these issues. We want to act on them and help contribute to the solutions.
A 2013 report out of Oxford University says nearly half of jobs are at risk from automation. Nearly half. According to a 2016 Brookfield Institute report, existing technology could already automate 42% of the tasks that Canadian workers do at their jobs, leaving nearly half of Canadians at a high risk of disruption in the next decade or two. Researchers at the U of T's Mowat Centre say anywhere from 1.5 million to 7.5 million Canadian workers could lose their jobs to automation in the next decade. Okay, that's one side of the coin. Here's the other side. Researchers at the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation in Washington say the Oxford figure we just gave is just plain wrong, and only about 10% of the jobs in the 700-plus occupations studied are at risk of automation. And this echoes a recent report by the OECD that says only 9% of jobs across 21 different countries are under serious threat. And a 2015 paper by our very own James Beston here found that computer use is associated with less than a 1% increase in employment annually. All right, James, I guess I want you to weigh in on this notion of, we understand there's going to be disruption, but at the end of the day, make our fears go away that we're not going to be dramatically worse off.
Right. So the first thing that people get confused is when automation comes along and automates a task in a job, it doesn't mean that the job goes away, or it doesn't even mean that there is less employment. One of my favorite examples is the automated teller machine, the ATM, and bank tellers. Everybody assumed that this technology was going to come along. It automates the cash handling tasks of bank tellers, and so everybody assumed we're going to just lose bank teller jobs. And that's not what happened. What happened was this. It made it easier. This technology made it less costly for a bank to open up a branch. And that meant that banks could open up more branches in order to serve and deliver cash and other services to people in more remote locations. So they opened up a whole lot more branches because it was less costly to do so. And as a result, the number of bank tellers actually rose from the period when ATMs were being installed rapidly from 1995 to 2005 roughly. And the critical idea here is that demand is important, that as long as we have major unmet needs, new technology comes along and it may reduce the amount of labor needed to produce a unit of output or a unit of service, but the effect on demand will offset that labor-saving effect, so that number of jobs does not necessarily decline and in many cases actually will increase.
Okay, let me jump in. Vivek, you want to come back on that?
Here's what the problem is with looking backwards. The changes we keep talking about, all of the stories we tell about agriculture and banks and so on, they happened over decades, sometimes over generations. And the jobs did disappear. People did become unemployed. There was a lot of doom and gloom. The next generation got better educated. They took those jobs. Here we have many things happening at the same time. On the one hand, you now have robots that can do manufacturing. On the other hand, you have AI-based self-driving cars that are coming. Just the self-driving cars, when they hit, the self-driving trucks are going to come first. We're talking about 3.5 million jobs in the United States directly from that. I don't know what the number in Canada is, but we're talking about millions of jobs. And then we have AI-based decision tools, which again start reducing the need for human labor. It's not that it's going to disappear. It means we need less of those jobs. And then you go to retail. You're already now seeing the decimation of the retail industry in America thanks to Amazon and their automated robots in their warehouses. That Amazon still employs 500,000 people, but compared to the retail industry, it's employing a fraction of what they did. And soon, the rest of Amazon will be automated as well. So you need even fewer people doing the box packing and putting into trucks. So you're talking about, on a large scale, industry after industry being impacted, happening at the same time within the same generation.
But Vivek, I do see Amazon getting into the bricks and mortar business in bookstores, in food, etc. Does that change your mind about anything?
Yeah, but they're also now looking at completely cashierless stores. Look at the latest prototype that they built, which doesn't have a human being in it. So yeah, brick and mortar stores without any human beings. So this is happening over and over again because you don't need humans. Humans are expensive, they're cumbersome. And when you can have AI and robots doing it faster, it's all happening at the same time across the industry. So even if we create some new jobs, the example that's often used is Zumba dancers and walker talkers and God knows what silly occupations. The unemployed truck drivers aren't going to be taking those jobs. They're going to be unemployed.
If I were reading headlines about any other industry that said we're closing down all these stores and we're firing all these people, I'd say this is an industry in trouble. Do you come to that conclusion?
I think it's a highly competitive industry, and it is a relatively slow growth environment for these grocers. They're posting 1% sales growth, for instance, like not exactly
robust.
Rolling times. Yeah. So I understand if it's hard to drive sales growth, you focus more on operational efficiencies, and I think that's what they're doing. They're trying to streamline. And Loblaw always closes some stores. I think the year before they closed about a dozen stores as well. So this isn't too unusual for them. They'll open stores, they'll close some stores.
That's part of the churn.
Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't focus too much on that number per se. I think really where they're facing some pressure is where you talked about. It's the new competitors, whether that's Costco or Amazon, and realizing they're competing for that grocery wallet across a larger array of new entrants.
And there's another group of competitors that have come along. They're specialty retailers that have food. For instance, I think there's one called Healthy Planet here, and there's about 8 or 9 stores or 6 or 7 stores. And they sell vitamins and muscle building stuff and everything else, but they have quite a line of grocery products. And stores like that differentiate themselves from a supermarket, they are beginning to do very, very well. And our tracking shows that specialty food stores are growing at least 3 times the rate that the supermarket industry is growing.
How do you, when you look at the same kind of facts that we've been analyzing here so far, do you see an industry that is in some difficulty as a result of the changes?
No, I come to the same conclusion as Robin and George. I actually do think, I would go even further though, I actually do think they're trying to make space for new talent. Grocers are traditionalists, and so they have a mindset, but when you're up against a company that doesn't really need to sell food to make a profit, Amazon, you need people who actually think differently about the consumer. Now, Robin is mentioning margin of about 1%. It's actually anywhere between 0.5 to 1% these days. Meanwhile, in the food service, it's anywhere between 3 to 4% growth every year. So you're seeing food retailing trying to convert towards food service slowly through ready-to-eat products, meal kits, etc.
I got to follow up on one thing here, because you said they're looking for new talent.
Yes.
But Sobeys is firing 800 people.
Yes.
So you got to fire people to hire people?
Well, people that actually think differently is something that companies need. And so Loblaw actually had to let go 500 people a few weeks ago, Sobeys 800, and Metro also did the same thing a few weeks ago, 250. Within 2 weeks, it's almost like it's like an orchestra. It's your turn, and then everyone is realigning their business model at the same time.
But is the notion that those hundreds who were laid off don't have the skills that this marketplace requires, whereas presumably the new people they hire will? Is that the thinking?
That's what I'm speculating. I'm dean of the faculty, and when I talk to companies, they're looking at graduates with some knowledge in data science and data analytics, and that's someone like Robin would fit in quite nicely.
You looking to make a move?
Don't ask me these questions.
Leave your resume at the door if you want. If
you're going to get me in trouble.
If that's the case, if we're looking at sort of a new frontier for the grocery business and new skills are going to be needed, can you just put a little more meat on that bone there? What kind of skills are the jobs of the future going to entail?
I think you start to get at it a bit, the analytical skills, the ability to take loyalty card data and really mine it to hone offers, to hone the store, hone the selection. That is a new type of skill set than some of these retailers are used to having. The other piece too is just the e-commerce side, digital marketing. How do I connect in this new media through a mobile device instead of through the flyer, which I'm used to using? So there are some new skill sets. I think the real question is, will it be 800 new jobs to the 800 lost? I don't think it will be.
And that is the Agenda's Week in Review for this Friday, December 8th, 2017. You can see all of those conversations in their entirety at tvo.org, our website, on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/theagenda, and thanks to our nightly Twitter live stream on our Periscope page. That's periscope.tv/theagenda.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.